So we're going to change the spools in the SkiErg. And the first thing we do is take the right side panel off that has 8 screws. We remove the panel. Now we need to remove the flywheel. To do that, we have to remove the flywheel housing, the outer housing. There's 4 Phillips head screws in each of these bosses. So you'll take a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the screw, and take the nut out on the back side. And there's one more Phillips head screw that clamps the two ends of the stainless together. So we'll just unscrew that screw 2 to 3 turns to loosen it. We don't want to take it all the way out. And we can remove the stainless steel. Now we will remove the bungees, the shock cord from each spool, disconnect it. And to do that, we take the end of the shock cord that's coming up off the spool and give it some slack, and then just pull it out of the slot in the spool. Each spool has 2 slots, one for the white cord and one for the bungee, and we just pull the shock cord, the green shock cord, out of the slot. And again, we take tension off and pull the bungee out of the slot and carefully let it go back up to the top. You don't want to just let go or it'll come undone. And then we unspool the handle cords from the spools and just let them drop down all the way. Once the shock cords are disconnected from the spools, we'll untie the handle cords from the spools, and to do that, we'll take the white cord and just untie the overhand knot around the spool and pull the tail out of the slot in the spool and let it go. And again, we untie the overhand knot and pull the white cord out of the slot. So now we'll take the hubcap off and remove the screw and washer that hold the flywheel in place with the T27 driver. Just unscrew the screw and the washer. So with the screw and washer removed, we can remove the flywheel, and we'll want to hold on to the 2 spools as we pull the wheel out. We'll just hold on to them, and then we pull the wheel out of the housing and pull the spools out, and there'll be 4 spacers that come out as well. So with the spools removed, we can put the new spools back on. First we want to put the spacers on, and the flanges, the big part of the spacer, will go away from the spool. So we'll put the first long spacer on, and then we'll put the first spool on. And spool we'll put with the silver dot facing towards the flywheel. Each spool has a dot on the flange, and we want that dot to face towards the flywheel. And to confirm that, we want to make sure that the spool drives the flywheel towards the box, and it freewheels in the other direction. So it's engaged and then freewheels. Now we put the first short spacer in, again with the flange away from the spool. The second short spacer, the 2 flanges touching each other, and then the second spool again with the writing on the inside of the spool facing the flywheel. Now we push the axle through, and we'll push it all the way through so it pushes out the bearing on the other side, on the back side. Once the bearing is out, we can put the last spacer in with the flange pointing out. And now we can put the bearing in, and the bearing we want to have seated with the larger rubber face towards the machine. It's got a thinner wall here and then a thicker wall, and we want the thicker wall to go towards the frame. Push that in place. Now we can put the washer and screw back into the axle. And tighten that down. Now we can reattach the handle cords. So we'll pull it down, and we want to put the cord going around the spool and then tie the overhand knot. So on the inside, then over the cord and then into the slot. And we want the handle cords attaching again on the flywheel side of the spool, both handle cords. So now we'll take the second cord and do the same thing. We go over the spool, around the back, and then we tie the overhand knot around the spool so the tail is pointing towards the flywheel. And we line that tail up and put it into the slot on the end of the spool closest to the flywheel. And tighten both of those down. Now we can wind the cord onto the spools, and to do that we can just spin the flywheel backwards and it will wind up both cords onto the spools. All the way to the top until the handles reach the pulleys. Now we can reattach the green shock cord. So we'll pull the shock cord down and go around the spool. And we want to have at least one wrap of the shock cord before it tucks into the slot. So we'll go around once and then find the slot, and it's back here. So we'll go around a second time and then put the tail of the shock cord into the slot and let that tighten up. Now we'll take the second shock cord, and again we want to go behind the spool, around the spool at least once, so we have one full wrap of the shock cord. And then we take the tail and pass it into the slot in the spool and pull it tight. Now we pull the handles just to make sure everything is on the spool correctly, all the way out a couple of times. And we're done.